Here we go. So hello today, everybody. Welcome to the panel discussion for today on advancing DEIB practices. My name is Dee Dee Tapson, and I will be your moderator for today's panel discussion. Reina Fudafino, our DEIB program manager, is out of the office on DEIB business and is not able to make it today. So Dr. Kate Smith also, she may pop in, don't know yet if she will or not, but the president may not be able to make it. She was out at a couple of different conferences and has had to attend to some business upon her return. So she may pop in. If she does, we'll acknowledge her at that time. And so, but I just want to say that Dr. Smith is our DEIB champion, as she believes in making all people visible and valued. Rio is dedicated to diversity, equity, inclusion, and fostering belonging for all. We provide a safe place and home where everybody can thrive. All members of our community have the right to be free from harassment and bias and discrimination. And differences and unique perspectives are embraced. We invite courageous conversations in order to elevate those voices who have not been heard, open boundaries, nurture growth, and develop as a community. Those commitments are to ensure that everyone has access to the opportunities and resources offered by Rio Salado College. And we're excited to be on this journey together. So let's welcome our panel members. We have 4 panel members who will be joining us today. These panel members attended the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity this year, and that is probably one of my favorite conferences of all time. I didn't have a chance to go this year, but I love going to that conference because I always pick up so many different nuggets from that particular conference. So our panel members are Ken Wilk, who is a faculty chair for applied technology at Rio Salado College. Ken has worked as a project engineer for heavy civil construction companies in Phoenix and Alaska. His experience in the field, combined with a master's degree in engineering and construction management from NAU. I'm an NAU person, so yay, go Lumberjacks, gives him deep expertise in the trades and how he leads. Wilk's passion for teaching emerged through his work in the incarcerated reentry program here at Rio Salado, which I just love that program. I think it's an awesome program, where he taught carpentry classes at Lewis Prison. He was also selected for a prestigious fellowship with the National Science Foundation's Advanced Technological Education Program. And his greatest reward comes from helping the students realize their potential in the trades, which I just think is awesome. Our second panel member is Jennifer Moore. She is the faculty chair for Rio's Psychology Department, in addition to serving as a faculty advisor for our local chapter of NSLS. On the district level, she chairs the Psychology Instructional Council, serves on the Faculty Professional Growth Committee for travel and summer projects, and is a General Education Council member. Jennifer was accepted into the 2024-2025 United Nations Faculty Fellowship Program, where she, alongside her faculty partner, Canadian Dr. Paul Clark, has been developing a curriculum aimed at reducing social, economical, and political inequalities in local communities, which she's going to be embedding in her upcoming psychology and culture course for this fall semester, which she's probably already done. I'm assuming so. She's shaking her head yes. She was motivated to attend NCORE because it has become the go-to academic conference for all those concerned about the state of race relations on college campus. And that's one of the reasons that I loved going to that particular conference as well. Dr. Carolyn Wesley is the supervisor of the Instructional Help Desk, Honors Program, and Tutoring Department, and has over 30 years experience in higher education. Her career began in 1989 as a math tutor and eventually led to her teaching courses in person and online. As a first-generation college student, she can empathize with the challenges that students face today. Her leadership experience extends to several initiatives for both students, faculty, including first-year experience, first-time to college students. Dr. Wesley holds a bachelor's in management and computer programming and an MBA an endorsement in math, and a PhD in education. Her dissertation was comparing outcomes of e-learners taught by full-time or adjunct faculty. She is also the vice president of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. And then last but not least, we have Dr. Lamont Slater. And Dr. Slater is the chair of the Humanities Rio Salado College. He has been working in higher education for 23 years. Dr. Slater's academic focus centers towards African and African American literature, history, and culture. Dr. Slater's work has been influenced by his lived experience in, I'm not butcher all of this, Lamont, Kitzingen, Germany, and his research surrounding the Black experience during the Holocaust. His specialization focuses on African genocide, memorialization, and historical inclusion. Dr. Slater has analyzed the long-term effects of genocide in German Southwest Africa, Namibia, and Rwanda, and how the intersectionality of cross-cultural issues such as colonialism, inclusivity, race, and class contribute to some of today's challenges. He's lived and worked in Windhoek, Namibia, and Cape Town, South Africa for 5 years while teaching for Augsburg University Center for Global Education. And he earned a BA in political science from Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. He has a master's in humanities, literature from St. Edward's, the University of Austin, Texas, and a PhD in humanities with a specialization in comparative genocide from South Regina University in Newport, Rhode Island. So this is our esteemed panel members. I think they have like wonderful experience and wonderful things that they will be sharing with us. And so I'm excited to actually start asking the questions that I'm going to ask of the panel members. So with question number 1, I'm going to direct this to either Jennifer and Carolyn. So what were the most impactful sessions or workshops you attended at NCORE 2024? And what specific strategies or practices did you find most valuable for advancing diversity and inclusion within our organization? So either one of you can go first.
Carolyn, I'll defer to you first, and then I'll follow.
Okay. All right. So first of all, thank you, Dee Dee, for doing this. I think this is something that is warranted. The conference is an awesome conference to attend. This was my 5th year attending NCORE, and I do plan to attend more if permitted. So there were several workshops that I attended. The workshops are so impactful and so powerful. If you get there late, you'll be standing up. So there's not enough room for you to actually get in. But there were several workshops that I found very, very important. And the first one was the 5 C's. That particular conference talked about sometimes you have to call someone out. But it also gave examples of how to do it. They were all professional examples. The other C was counseling. Sometimes there's a time when you just need to counsel and you just need to push back. The third 5C was calling in. Sometimes you have to, call in. Sometimes you may have to have that difficult dialogue, but it's okay. You just need to be respectful when you do. The other part of that was calling on. Sometimes you have to call in your coworkers. That's how you grow. And the 5th part of the C was calling it off. Sometimes it's okay to disengage. So that was actually one of my favorites. And then also attended the one with women in higher education in the C-suites. And they talked about women being in different spaces, and sometimes you need to have that advocate for you. If you're not in that space to have the conversation, maybe you have a colleague that is. But in that conference, one of the things that came out of it was a glass cliff. I had never heard of a glass cliff before. So immediately when I left there, I went to research what the glass cliff was. And that's when you're promoted during a certain time. It could be a stressful time or during crisis or under duress. And you get to that top and you're not supported. So you get to the top and you fall off the cliff. And I had never heard of a glass cliff before. I had a glass ceiling, but not a glass cliff. So I found that one to be very important. And then the other one that I attended was a framework for understanding the interpretation of Black women in STEM. And that one really, really resonated with me because that was my journey when I was 17 years old and attending university, and just finding myself in a space that I didn't know how to navigate. And I remember one of my professors telling me that I would never make it as a female in the STEM department. So that really brought back memories from years ago. So it was really, really good to hear how things have evolved and women are embraced in these STEM areas, whereas years ago they were not. Another was Knowing Your Neighbor, and that was regarding incarcerated reentry. And the individuals that facilitated that conference, they all had been incarcerated at some point in time, and just to see them giving back to others. And I didn't realize, I believe they said in California, you can actually be in the jail system, but that's considered your prison sentence because of the overcrowdedness. So they were given back to the individuals. And then I believe that was my last one. So some of the strategies was to be observant, to pay attention, understand the culture, and to make sure that you make others feel as though they matter and not just belong. So those are some of the things that I want to continue to incorporate, and just make sure that I acknowledge others and make sure that they are heard within the workplace. So those are some strategies that I will continue to promote. Hey, Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I attended several sessions with a lot of my colleagues here and across the nation, and the one I want to speak about today was the one about, it was a little bit the spicier one, so it was the one about welcoming and making sure all of our students feel safe in our college campuses, in our classrooms, and specifically those of the Jewish faith and those who identify as of the Jewish people. I am not Jewish, I am not Palestinian, and so I really went into it as more of a scholastic mindset. There were people in the lecture hall. There was about 100 of us that were attending that were the Jewish faith, that were Palestinian Alliance allegiance. So it was definitely a little more of a tense one, a little less, less academic, but the lecturer did excellent. She had all of her notes prepared, and it was interesting being a faculty member. I think we forget sometimes the tensions, the questions, just the nervousness of being asked questions in real time. And so I really appreciated that lens. I was able to see it through, and it was a longer session. It was booked for about 2.5 hours, and throughout the conference, you saw people with Palestinian headscarves on, and people with Israeli flags, people with Palestinian flags. So it was obviously very at the top of people's minds and conversations. And so the point of the lecture was to go back and think about, what does it mean to be Jewish? And she actually started with that question. What does it mean to be Jewish? How do you qualify to be Jewish? And so she had us all take out our cell phones and, is Judaism a religion? Is it a race? Is it a ethnicity? Is it a nationality? And, trick question, I guess all four, right? And so I failed the first pop quiz. I picked, I think, religion. And I guess I got partial credit because, yes, it is that, but it's more than that. And so she did an excellent job of describing that, what does it mean to be Jewish? And it was excellent. She identified, the tension in the room right away. And so from the faculty perspective, I was like, okay, that's excellent. I need to not be shy, not avoid these difficult conversations, especially because our students are grappling with these tougher conversations, whether it be when Black Lives Matter was coming through. I myself am not a person of color, but that does not mean that people in my classes aren't having these conversations around the dining room table, aren't having these conversations, on social media. And so it was just really eye-opening to me. And then about 15, 20 minutes into the lecture, it quickly became less about the academic side of it and divulged into screaming and shouting and hurling of racial slurs. And so security came in and tensions rose, and I would say about 20% of the participants left out of fear. And you know, I'm a staunch advocate for academic freedom, and I think that it needs to be protected. And like I mentioned, I'm not of the Jewish faith. I'm not Jewish heritage. I was there for this whole idea of, NCORE stands for this idea of academic freedom and protecting our students, regardless of what they are, what they look like, who they align with. But so I went up and I spoke to the lecturer, and I asked her, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I think I'm going to call it. I think I'm going to just disband everybody and not continue with the lecture." And I said, "That's your call, absolutely, and I will support you in that." And I said, "And I think you should continue." And I said, because if you let the protesters silence you, academic freedom loses a little bit today. And I'm not here to agree or disagree with what you're saying. I am here to provide a safe space for that academic freedom and that discourse and that conversation to have oxygen. And I said, what is it going to take for you to stay and finish your lecture? I said, because you applied to NCORE, they reviewed your application, they accepted your proposal. You have a right to speak, and I'm here to defend you. And she said, well, will you stand up here with me? And I said, absolutely. So they brought in more security, and the protesters continued. And I know there's some debate whether or not they have a right to be vocal. And I've had this conversation with Dr. Slater, with fellow faculty, and even people there at NCORE. Yes and no. So yes, they have a right to be there. They paid their admittance, and that's what they kept saying, that they paid their admittance fee. Yes, but she has the right to speak, right? She was the one that was approved through the NCORE panelists that she has the right to deliver her speech and her lecture. And she absolutely gave them time to disagree and to ask questions. And I'll just say she's a stronger woman than I am, because they would address her through racial slurs, not through her academic title, not doctor. And I was like, wow, you are a strong woman. I'll just say that. The security did eventually tell them to stop yelling, because she would continue to give them the microphone when it was their turn, or in rotation to speak. And so they decided to start slamming the door as a form of protest. And so I went up to another person in attendance, and I said, will you put your foot in the door so when it slams, it won't make a slamming sound? And she said, yeah, I'll do that. So she finished her lecture. And here's the thing, and like I mentioned to her, I'm not going to agree or disagree with 100% of what you're saying. And I hope that you don't agree or disagree with 100% of what I'm saying. But I do hope that you defend me or her or anybody else with a space to have that conversation. And that civil discourse does have a right in academia. And that's what academia stands on, is this space talk.
Thank you for sharing that. That's that was heavy. I mean, I have people that said that they were at the conference and didn't realize that had gone on. And, and they're surprised that this was coming from people that are from the academia world. That we're all grown people, and then, to act in that manner. And, I'm glad that they did have some type of security there, because I've been involved in other conferences where we needed to have security in place for such conversations as this one that you were a participant of. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
It's a topic. It's a heavy topic.
Yeah, it is a very heavy topic.
And we are academics.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So I'm sure people will have more questions. So I do want to let everybody know that we'll have some time for question and answer after at the end. So just hold on to your questions and we will be addressing those. Question number 2 that I have is, can you share any innovative ideas or successful initiatives presented at the conference that could be adapted to enhance our current DEIB programs? Lamont, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, for sure. Let me jump in and answer that one. So again, I want to thank DEIB for putting this on, and thank my colleagues for like having me join them on the panel. You know, I was actually supposed to go to the conference and got sick like right before I was supposed to get on a plane, you know, and so I called Dr. Wesley. I told her I couldn't make it, like 3 in the morning, you know, and I couldn't make it. But what I ended up doing was like contacting the sessions that I was supposed to go to. I had a private personal session with each of the sessions that I wanted to go to. So it was awesome. I couldn't believe it, you know. So I was able to get that information, because I think that this conference is, you know, with all the negativity that was surrounding, you know, some certain aspects of going to Hawaii and a conference and a district's point of view. I mean, what I wanted to make sure is that even though I didn't go to the conference, I was going to extract that information and make sure that, you know, that we put it out there, because it's too much positive not to put out there. You know, and so, you know, so I attended several of the sessions virtual, and I was really impressed that the presenters were able to really give me like the full session, like over the full session online. And one of the things that I think that we could really learn from, as far as like an innovative idea, and that connects with our DEIB roadmap, is like, how do we diversify the curriculum? And one of the things that you know, that we're working on now is study abroad, right? So we're working on study abroad in Ghana, but one of the sessions was called how to decolonize study away programming in Hawaii. And you know, so there's study abroad and there's study away. So study away is more localized. You know, you can study, you know, within the U.S., and that's study away. But in the context of Hawaii, I mean, there's an issue of like, how do we decolonize that type of instruction? Because according to like Dr. Allison Yap, who was the presenter of that session, she conducted a survey, and in her survey, what she wanted to do was use the NSE, the National Student Exchange Service, to kind of determine like where they were at as far as like their sentiments towards Hawaii, like what they felt about it, and any historical knowledge that they knew about it, and you know, try to extract that information. But before she got started, she said, I always get started with a land acknowledgement. And one of the things that I noticed that we don't do here is a land acknowledgement, which is really interesting, because you know, we have the building, the Hohokam building, right? But we can name the building Hohokam, right? But we don't acknowledge the land that the Hohokam is on, you know? So I think that one of the things that we need to do is that we need to start off with a land acknowledgement. And what I wrote down, like, just very quickly, just how like their land acknowledgement went. And it was a very lengthy land acknowledgement. I won't get into the entire acknowledgement, but here's a piece of it that I want to make sure that the audience is familiar with. Her acknowledgement says, I recognize that Her Majesty Queen Liliuokalani temporarily yielded her authority under the duress and protest to the United States to avoid bloodshed, and that and because of that, today's Hawaii remains an illegally occupied state of America. The land acknowledgement also acknowledges the Kanaka Owi people of Hawaii. And so, you know, this is part of the decolonization process. You know, like, how do we go to these spaces and really acknowledge what happened? You know, instead of just going there, but you know, and it's being swept away by, you know, the aura of Hawaii. And so this was part of her research. Like, how do we like extract information from students that go, and you know, how do we like decolonize this thinking? And one of the things that she brought up, and we can use this on our study abroad, is like how to like stay away from like negative aspects of study abroad. In other words, like study abroad has a reputation. There's some negativity attached with study abroad that as we're moving forward with our study abroad trip to Ghana in 2026, we need to avoid. Like, for example, Dr. Yap talked about extracting this extraction, like it's only a one-way type of contract. You know, like students are going to study abroad and they're not they're taking away, but they're not giving anything. And so one of the things that I remember doing when I was in Namibia is that it had to be two ways. We had to do a true student exchange so that we're getting something and then they're also getting something. And so, we had internships set up so that, our students can actually give, based on their major, they can actually give something and then get something at the same time. And then she also talked about like problematic marketing, so like always on study abroad marketing, you have like, for example, like on Hawaii, you have like the beach in the background or like somebody on a surfboard or something like that, and that's problematic, to the viewpoint of a local Native Hawaiian, because they want people to know that this is not what Hawaii is all about. This is the marketing aspect of it, but this is not what Hawaii is all about. And then she also talked about like attitudes of entitlement. So people coming down and being entitled, thinking that because it's quote unquote America that that they should be entitled, that this is America, instead of like just really recognizing the historical aspects of the land that they're walking on. And so she recommended like, different pieces that can help into the decolonization process. And some of those pieces, including like talking about like settler colonialism, talking about the continued occupation of Hawaii, and then talking about the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom in 1893 and the imprisonment of the Queen, like really trying to be inclusive of that history. And so one of the things that I got out of it, because, like I think that when you go on these conferences, you're not only trying to get information, but you're also trying to network, right? And so one of the things that came out of this talk is like, how can we leverage this contact to help us here at Rio? And one of the things that came out of it is, so I'll also be going to Hawaii again in January and to a humanities conference. But while I'm there, based off of this information I got from NCORE and the connection I got with Dr. Yap, I'll be connecting with her in the University of Hawaii to try to do a virtual study away here at Rio, so that we can, continue efforts of decolonization, through our curriculum. So that's what I picked up through the conference.
That's awesome. Thank you. That would be an interesting class to take for sure. Because I don't know that much about Hawaii. I've been there, but you don't, you're there as a tourist. And so you get trapped in all the touristy stuff.
For sure.
Yeah. Question number 3. What were some key takeaways or trends from the conference regarding the challenges and opportunities in promoting equity and inclusion in higher education? Caroline?
Yes, thank you. There's several takeaways. First of all, just being a part of it, that's a big takeaway because that's an opportunity to attend. So one of the things that I really embraced was embracing others' differences and respecting other spaces. If you want to be included, you can, but not everybody wants to be included. So those that will, and those that won't. So that was huge to me. And just to make me feel that I was a part of learning someone else's culture was really, really good. So one of the things that I want to share about being, included, there was one of the last sessions and we had missed the trolley to get back to the hotel. And one of the workers came up to us. There was like 3 or 4 of us that was out there. And I was like, well, how are we going to get back? I was like, well, I guess we can Uber back. And she said, no, you all have come this far to attend this conference. Let me pay for you to get back to your hotel. So she actually paid for 3 of us to get in an Uber and paid the Uber driver to take all of us to our respective locations. And she said, it's all about educating. She said, educating is more than just we're in this conference. We can still help and educate each other outside of where we are. So that really, really resonated with me. And when I got back, I sent her a message, tell her thank you, but she didn't have to do that to make me feel that I was part. So that was a big, even though it wasn't like conference directly related, just feeling that I was a part of this education circle. Another takeaway for me was, or a challenge was, to just make sure that you hear others' voices Every voice matters. You know, there's differences of opinions, there's challenges, but when you're open to just hearing someone else's voice, I thought that was really, really huge. And then knowing that there is a big difference between being ready for education and being prepared. So when I thought about that and brought it back and just listening to our students, they say that they're ready, but are they really prepared? So being in higher ed for over 30 years, I think there's work for me to do to make sure that every time that phone rings in instructional help desk, every time we're working with the tutoring department, working with the honors, to make the students feel like they are part, because everybody's coming from a different space. And just because they're coming from that space, they're still human. So those were my big takeaways. And you know, there can be some challenges in there because that's not what everyone wants. And even though that's not what anyone wants, it's okay. So I need to be respectful of that, but that would not stop me from doing what I need to do and to make others feel that they are a part. So there's takeaways and challenges with that. And I think as a former faculty member, you know, as a staff member, there's work for all of us to do. There's a space for everyone, if you're willing to embrace that. So I don't want to be one that say one thing and do just opposite. I want my actions to speak louder than my words. So those were big takeaways being in education, because there's a space for everyone. So.
Awesome, thank you. And if any of you ever want to jump in on any of these questions that I'm asking, you know, feel free to do so. Just like let me know, like Dee Dee, I want to speak on that. So my next question is, how did the conference sessions address the practical challenges of implementing DEIB strategies in diverse organizational settings? And are there specific methods or solutions that we could apply to overcome similar challenges within our organization? So Ken, you haven't spoken, so we're going to address this question to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely attended this conference with a lens of how could I do a better job in sort of career and technical education or STEM type programming, and tried to focus on going to sessions around how DEI was implemented in those areas. It really seemed like at Maricopa, we're doing a pretty phenomenal job of that. I'm not saying it can't be improved upon. And as everyone on this panel is well aware, you know, DEIB is a continual improvement process, like statistical quality control management. And it's a continual process. It's not one where we can just say, oh, we've done this and we're done. But the sessions I went to focused on either STEM or prison programming. The ones that I saw seemed to kind of boil down to they found grant funding to get additional social and student supports for services. They supported them with their local food banks or pantries that they had at the colleges, and then worked towards, you know, kind of having coaching and things of that nature. So all stuff that it seemed like we were doing at the college, and I didn't have any huge takeaways that were like, oh, this is something we could do that we're not doing in those areas. With the prison, with regards to prison programming and how we could support incarcerated students, one of the big takeaways that I think resonated with me was that several of the community colleges in the state of California had sort of formed a network to standardized release practices across multiple community colleges in different areas. So that was potentially an area that I thought was interesting, is, you know, having standardized support for incarcerated students when they're released. So that way, if their degree was attained, you know, for Arizona, instance, say they took a course at Central Arizona College and they were released in Maricopa, their credits would transfer into that organization and they could continue on with their educational programming. So I thought that was really interesting, was kind of aligning those types of programs for incarcerated students. And then the other big thing that sort of resonated with me is, and it came from more so the the way they supported incarcerated students upon release was making sure they didn't feel like they were a unique student population, but trying to integrate them on the campus so they felt inclusive in the campus environment. And if they were providing services for those students, it wasn't uniquely for those students, so they felt like that was a program just for them. They tried to be inclusive of other students that could benefit from those services, so that they weren't unique to that. So those were the two, I think, big takeaways that I came up with. And then, the third being that I think Maricopa's, there's room for improvement, but we're doing a pretty phenomenal job in those areas. So those were some of the more exciting things I saw. Some of the other conference sessions I attended, they were really interesting. They were enlightening. I didn't see how to directly apply them to what I did in career and technical education. It doesn't mean they weren't applicable. They were just broader concepts that I was still kind of struggling with in terms of how do you integrate these concepts, and they seem to present more of a problem to me, but to kind of get the problem from here's the problem, here's how you apply it, and here's 3 steps you could take away. It just more seemed to be an awareness of like, why are the laws the way that they are in regards to whiteness or something like that. So fascinating topics, a lot of historical context of the why things were the way they are. But it was something I definitely, just to be fully transparent, I struggled with as a white male. How do you do better, and what are those steps? And some of the answers I think I was hoping for were maybe in me being naive, thinking there's a solution to this problem and it's going to be easily presented. And it just kind of, I think, having a conversation with some of the panelists in this group, just how do you take an incremental approach? How do you notice something as simple? And I loved when I had a discussion with Dr. Slater, we're talking about inclusivity. How do you notice as simple as, a flag from a certain country is missing? How would that make people from that country feel if you have 50 flags, but not 51 and inclusive of that? So it's just, I think, attention to details, incremental approaches, and continuously improving was probably the other takeaway. And the fact that I didn't find any easy answers where it was just like, do these 3 things and it's magically fixed.
Yeah, that's a tough topic for the CTE programs and such, but it can be done. I'm glad that you did pick up some things though from like California. That's interesting. Lamont, did you have a response to this particular question?
Yeah, for sure. So I also communicated with another presenter named Amal Issa. She presented a topic called "The Day I Became Palestinian," and so one of the reasons why I wanted to get some insight on this, the original question was like talking about like challenges of DEIB, like how we can use these inclusive practices here at Rio. Is that one of the challenges that we face here is like, Rio, of course, is a unique model, and we don't know who's who. We don't, we know it's, our students are diverse, but we want to start doing strategies to really pull students on campus. We don't want to keep it all online, but we want to actually have, students. There are students that want to take an active role in their university, and so one of the things that I picked up from this session is that it was talking about like how to include everybody through the creation of affinity groups. And I know that part of like what we're trying to do on the DEIB Council is like step 1, like how do we get affinity groups off the ground, and what is the importance of these affinity groups? And one of the things that the session talked about is that, according to the presenter, she said that with regards to like Middle Eastern students, that they'll come to this country and that they're not put into a particular box. So when they're looking for an affinity group, like whatever the group is, Black Student Association, Hillel, whatever it is, they don't seem to really quite fit in the box. And so oftentimes like this affinity group is missing. Of course, I mean, I know I'm speaking to the choir, but affinity groups like tie into, I mean, we can recruit students, but can we retain them? That's the challenge, right? And so everybody knows that part of like the purpose of having affinity groups is to continue that process of retaining students from semester to semester. And so in this talk, they talked about like why this has a negative effect, and like the challenge that it presents to Rio. Like Rio is an online institution, so it's really hard to like emulate what another campus does. Other campuses actually have like houses for like Chinese Students Association, so it's easier to build community. It's easier to build place of belonging. Whereas here it's a challenge at Rio. I think that one of the things that we need to start doing here at Rio is really come outside the box and really start pulling these students in. We have space here, students. Every now and then I see students coming to campus. I think we have to like galvanize the student and through these affinity groups to really make sure that we retain them, because if you look at the numbers, I mean, depending on like which ones you're looking at, retention is an issue. And so I think that this session really focused on like creating affinity groups as like place of belonging and having people not feeling alienated, or our students feeling alienated while they're learning, within Rio.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. Question number 5 is, what were some surprising or unconventional ideas presented at the conference that could challenge or expand our current approaches to diversity and inclusion? Jennifer? She's like, oh, they called me.
A lot of them. And I think it goes back to what Lamont was saying. I think the challenge with Rio is, how do we make it fit our model? How do we make it fit our online students, our online faculty, our online staff? And I think that's where the spirit of Rio comes in, and that's where the need for innovation is going to come. I think that, I don't know, if you would have saw that book of sessions that was offered, right, Carolyn, it was like this thick. And so this is a hard question to answer, because the variety of, so like, for example, one of the sessions I went to was opening your Akashic record. Amazing. I have no idea how we're going to translate that to the online space. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
There's so much at this conference. I always found there was so many sessions that I wanted to go to that I couldn't get to all of them, because a lot of them are at the same time. Look at Carolyn is holding up the
and then
book.
hold it sideways, Carolyn, just like.
Yeah,
it doesn't do it justice. I mean, just the amount of options we had was a little overwhelming. I'll say that. I know Dr. Maya Henley and Carolyn, I think you might have went to it too, with I can't remember her name now. Excellent, about just the whole idea about being welcoming and just allowing everybody to feel like they have a space. And I think that is that one, Rio is really good at, and 2, we can do better on, right? Kind of what Ken was talking about, what Maricopa already does really well at is this whole welcoming idea, and we can do better about it. One of the things I did in my psychology and culture class for the United Nations program I was part of is this whole idea of, okay, look around, where in our local community are people already trying to create places of inclusivity. Notice it. People are doing it. Are you seeing it? And then how can you take that plan of action? How can you take the next step? Because our students are our next leaders, are our next teachers, doctors, lawyers. So kind of having them start working that muscle, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of resources out in our community, and a lot of our communities are doing a lot of good things. I live in Chandler, and I know that I get stuff from the city of Chandler all the time on the diversity and inclusion and the things that they're doing out here. So I think it's maybe connecting our students to some of those different programs out in their community, and help maybe, like you said, challenging them to go out and find out what they can connect with, and what can we as Rio connect with out in our community as well. The next question I have is, what resources, tools, or networks from the conference do you recommend we explore or utilize to support our ongoing DEIB efforts and to stay informed about best practices and emerging trends? Ken?
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen because I found 3 really good ones. And as Dr. Slater was talking earlier, it kind of reminded me of one of them. But see if I can share these websites, and then I'll try to drop them in the chat. The first one I have here, if everyone can see it, is speakoutnow.org, and it's a network of various speakers, and kind of as Dr. Slater was pointed out, they kind of represent various affinity groups or different groups or scholarly activity and specializations. And that was heavily kind of marketed throughout the conference, and I thought it was pretty exciting because there was, you know, a speaker to come to potentially any issue you could think of. So that was one. As we've kind of touched on, there's various land acknowledgement projects. If you all can see this one, just kind of you know, various land acknowledgement projects or movements. That the Hawaiian one specifically is one with a lot of cultural history around it, just because of the way in which Hawaii became a state. And I had a really interesting conversation with an Uber driver about that on the way to the airport. But definitely an exciting topic, and just acknowledging land acknowledgements and how they can do that. And then the last one, which I'm trying to bring up here, this was another big one they had focused on in the project. Was sort of a pledge to future generations, and a pledge to here it's a pledge to our kaiki, which I believe kaiki is a word for children, but kind of making pledges to you know, future generations of, you know, how you're going to acknowledge the past and move forward in a productive way. So this was interesting. So I'll drop those in the chat. Those were the 3 that I think resonated with me the most from the conference, and that was what I wanted to share.
Awesome, thank you. I know I was working at Scottsdale before I came over here to Rio, and I know that we always did the land acknowledgements there at Scottsdale Community College, and we always challenge people to go out and find what tribes, you know, what land are we on here within our own communities, and you know, what can we do to acknowledge the land that we're on. And so that's one of the cool things. Does anybody else have anything else to add to this that they wanted to bring up about the conference? I know I had a question for Ken. I mean, not just you, but did they have the caucuses? I don't know if any of you ever participated in any of the caucuses, because they usually had breakout sessions for like the Latinos or the Latinx group, the Black group, the Asian Island Pacifica group, the white caucuses. They had caucuses there so that people could go and debrief with people so that they could actually, you know, just kind of really chat about things that they maybe felt uncomfortable talking about in open spaces. So I don't know if any of you participated in any of those or
So I believe that they had them there. I did not participate in them. One of the things that I learned after I got to the conference, or actually the last day of the conference, when they were showing the video of some things that they had did while we were there, I was wondering why I didn't see any of that. Well, it happens on the first day, that pre, and I didn't realize all that was happening in the pre on that day. I would have loved to go out and work in, I believe I think they went out to clean up the community or do something. So I would have loved to participate in that, because that would have been another way to, you know, learn about diversity, inclusivity, but all of that was on that pre-day. So I'm thinking, well, next time that may be something to entertain, is to get some of that, because once the conference starts, it's jam-packed from 8 to 5. So making some of those prior connections, I think, would have been huge. So I believe that's where a lot of those things take place, is in the pre.
yeah, it's there's a lot to do at those conferences, and I know I was always there from like 7 in the morning till like sometimes 10 o'clock at night, because there was always so much to do at that conference. But Do any of the attendees, do you have any questions? I saw something in the chat, Lamont, for you. Mary Bankhead from PBCC says she's working on a study abroad to Hawaii, as well, based on her cultural experience. I think she got to go to the conference, so she wanted to connect with you. So just to let you know. Yeah, so I saw that in the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Does any, I don't know if you can raise your hands. I don't know how I can see you raising your hands. I can unmute people.
Sherry Moore has a question.
Who does, Sherry? Okay, hold on. I'm trying to unmute you, Sherry. Maybe I'll just unmute everybody. Let me see how I can do that. Because there was a way for me to do that, and now I can't find it. Hold on. Switch, copy, start practice. Me, no. Does anybody know how to unmute different people? Oh, here it is. Unmute all. Okay, Sherry, go ahead. I think we can't hear you if you're speaking.
She says she's still muted.
I'm pressing the unmute all. Can you type it in the chat? Because I can see the chat.
It's locked some type of way. There's a lock on the microphone.
There's a lock on the mic. Yeah, there is a lock on the mic, and I'm trying to figure out how to undo that. Okay, try it now, Sherry. Nope. Still muted. I'm pressing the allow panelists to unmute themselves. Unmute all. Anybody have any ideas? Yeah. Type your question in so that we can have the panel answer that question. I apologize. I haven't worked in WebEx in a long time, and it's not letting me do what I thought I was going to be able to do. I'm not seeing any questions come in, Sherry, if you're typing it in. Did they say where the next conference is going to be?
I believe it's in New York City.
New York, yes.
In New York City? Is it in May still, at the end of May?
I believe it is.
Okay. So Sherry wrote a question to Dr. Slater. Can we possibly invite our students to participate in affinity group opportunities at the various Rio locations?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We had talked about that at one of our last meetings, and because we have space at Rio. That's the other thing I want to maximize at Rio is that I want to get out of like the box that Rio is just online. I want to start moving like in a different direction, and that direction is going to be like utilize the space that we have. We have several different locations around Phoenix, and I believe that we can connect with students from all across the valley in that way. And so yes, for sure. We definitely plan on working on that this semester. So for sure.
Thank you. I know that we have, I know through DEIB, I'm glad that you shared some of the links that you shared, because we already are involved with like Speak Out, or, we're familiar with them. And, so as part of DEIB, we've been looking at that as maybe an opportunity for us to participate with some of the different activities that they have, because they have a wealth of stuff going on all the time. And they have some fantastic speakers. And so I would encourage you to get involved with that. I'm always sending things to our DEIB committee that University of Phoenix puts on a free monthly webinars. The Diversity Advisory, not the Diversity Advisory Council, Diversity Leadership Alliance puts on monthly workshops. As a matter of fact, they just had their conference this past week. And so they do monthly things that are for free. So anybody can attend those. So I just want to give a shout out to those things because there's a lot of different things that are available to us as employees of Maricopa Community College District and at Rio. So that's about all the time that we had. Mary said she would reach out to you after this discussion is over, Lamont. So just want to let you know. So I want to thank all of you for attending. And I want to give kudos to you all because this is the first time I've attended this conference many times. And this is the first time that they've actually brought people that I'm aware of, that they bring people together to discuss what you all learned from the conference and what could be brought back here to our college system. I always shared that with my department whenever I came back and with our HR folks at district, but this is the first time that it's been brought, like on a college-wide level, which I just think it's awesome. So I'm glad that, Raina put this together. So kudos to Raina and to the rest of the DEIB group. So thank you all for attending, and I will stop the recording now. So thank you.
Thank you.